And can you tell me about the project that you're embarking on with this, and what the ideas in it came from, and what you hope to accomplish with them? That's probably about 4 questions, but answer the parts you
sure.
like.
So we've been working on how plant communities respond to not just increasing fire frequency, but also changes in the amount of precipitation. So through one of our long-term experiments out on Loma Ridge, we have found that when the coastal sage scrub, which is our dominant local plant community, when that plant community is exposed to long-term drought and then burns, that then the recovery is much slower than if the coastal sage scrub is experiencing more just ambient amounts of rainfall. And that there's this positive feedback loop where non-native invasive annual grasses move in, and they are kind of a flashy fuel. They burn pretty quickly, but they also, fires when they go through an area that's invasive annual grasses don't burn as hot. And so it kind of changes the nature of the fire too, so that the coastal sage scrub community historically has burned at longer time intervals. So there might be a fire once every 30 to 50 years. But now with these more frequent fires, the invasive grasses are moving in to these areas, especially when combined with drought. And then when the fire burns, it doesn't burn up the seeds of the invasive grasses because it doesn't burn as hot. And so what happens is after the fire, we just get more non-native invasive grass species that move in, and we're losing those native shrubs that are more accustomed to higher intensity fires. So because they evolved under a system of lower frequency wildfires, the seeds of the natives are often, they'll survive very hot fires and will actually germinate better after fires. We often see a flush of native wildfires after a fire. But with this, we call it vegetation type conversion, where we're seeing a shift from the shrub communities to being more invasive grasses. And that's having this impact on the fire cycle as well. And then we're having a lot more human ignition sources too. So we've kind of, we worked with the Natural Communities Coalition at the Eco Preserve here on campus, looking at the urban wildland interface, so the areas where houses come right up to the natural area, and trying to understand what can we do in that buffer zone between the open space and the human occupied areas to reduce fire risk and to kind of promote fire safety. So there we were looking at planting cactus, which is a native plant that has a high moisture content. And then we started working with Laguna Canyon Foundation, who manages a lot of fuel modification zones around the city of Laguna Beach. And we brought in students to measure the moisture content of the plants inside and outside of these areas that have been the fuel modification zones, where shrubs have been, the shrub density has been reduced and the non-native invasive grasses have been removed. And we found that the native shrubs have higher moisture content when they're growing in those fuel modification zones. So it seemed like the next step would be to scale it up. We have all this on the ground data too. We do annual vegetation monitoring across Orange County, so we know the height of all the shrubs, what species are there. We measure the thatch, so we know that's the dead annual material that builds up and kind of causes a fire risk. And so we thought it would be great to do some remote sensing work to look at the past fires and how our on the ground monitoring data could be used to inform information from weather conditions and satellite imagery to understand areas of high fire risk and areas that have like lower foliar moisture content and might be more highly flammable. So I don't know if I answered all of your questions.
I think you did, yes. So Jim, what are you bringing to the party here?
Well, I want to build on something that Sarah said about the fuel moisture. It's so important here in Southern California for determining whether a fire will ignite and then whether it will get out of initial control, because all the fires here are suppressed as much as they can be, and then how big it will ultimately get. And some of the most destructive fires in Orange County are ones that occurred during Santa Ana events. And these are these really strong offshore winds in the fall. But not every Santa Ana event, we get Santa Ana events, I think we're in one today actually, it's a beautiful day. Not all Santa Ana events generate wildfires. So it's mostly the windy ones. But in some of the work that I've done, the second most important factor on whether a Santa Ana event, besides how windy it is how dry the fuels are. And so, and that's, I think, caught some of us in the community off guard last winter with the fires in the Eaton Canyon and Palisades fire. Normally, like from Sarah's measurements in the fall, when we get the first rains, that the fuel moisture will go up. Like all the shrubs will hydrate, and you'll get this fine layer of grass, and that basically drops the fire risk to close to zero. And so, in a normal year, that will happen in October. Last year, we didn't get any rains until mid-January, and so the Santa Ana events are getting progressively more intense as we move from like August into January, and yet we didn't have the rain. And so in a normal year, we would have been off the hook. That would have been a normal, like we would have had a couple inches of rain. The fuel moisture would be relatively high. All the natural kind of like phenological shrub leaf growth would be starting up. But we didn't have that. And so that was like a 1 in 100 year event of the delay of the rainfall and an incredibly windy event that combined together. So I think what I'm really excited about in this collaboration is to build on some of Sarah's measurements of this fuel moisture. And you can control it spatially, but we also need to understand better, like how, after the first rain, how long does it take for the hydration to happen? And then that risk really drops. And so we can do a better job in, I think, communicating that risk, which is non-intuitive. I think when it's all about the wind or how hot the individual event is, but there's this history of the last 6 months of what the plants have experienced that completely sets the risk during one of these events. And so I think in our collaboration together, we'll have a chance to be able to, I think, really try to improve our understanding of this like fuel moisture and build better models for Orange County.